There I was, sleeping comfy and satisfied in my bed after a long, hard day of work, when suddenly, I know what I must draw. This inspiration came upon me in the middle of the night. I woke up and I had to immediately write down the idea for this Pokemon that we're drawing. Hi, my name's Thesterninator and welcome to the channel. Today we're focusing on another astrological Pokemon, this one being Gemini. So essentially, how do you draw two Pokemon as one Pokemon? We've seen it done before with things like Diglett turning into Dugtrio, with Pokemon like Phalanx just as a whole. But how did I want to handle this? How did I want to tackle this? And it came about when I was actually watching Trolls 3 band together. I saw the characters of Velvet and Veneer and kind of put that together with a couple other ideas and thought, okay, if a Gemini is a character who's supposed to be creative and outspoken and not one to shy away from some tea, I thought, why not make them feel like these pop stars, these idols? I began to draw inspiration from characters like the two old women whose names I can't remember, I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments, from Coraline, and how they were made of this stretchy taffy in the nightmare world. I thought of, again, the characters Velvet and Veneer from Trolls, and I thought about characters like Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie from the 90s show The Simple Life. The idea of these pop stars or celebrities or performers kind of bonded together, whether they want to or not. They're kind of a package deal. So I started by taking that idea and doing something very simple with it. I wanted to focus on the idea of these two characters who were friends, the two who kind of just always did everything together, and I came up with this idea of what if they were literally bonded together, if they focused on things like rope that tied them together. I could incorporate that into the hair, I could incorporate that into these hands that kind of stretch out at you, and I had so many ideas. Maybe I want to incorporate something like jump rope or taffy, and I kind of feel like I ended up incorporating all of it, bringing it all into play here. I don't know why, it just felt like it worked. It felt like to go with the idea of a pop star or sensation of some kind, taffy kind of worked, and jump rope kind of worked. I wanted it to be this very fun and exciting first stage that was just two best friends hanging out together, going on a walk, and I feel like it kind of works. I've never been a person who really enjoyed the Pokemon Mousehold, but I kind of fell in love with the design that we're going across here. I change a couple things as we start to get to the lining and inking process, and I think that what we end up going with really translates well into the next stage of what we'll see. That kind of becomes the challenge of these designs, is designing something that works both in the initial phase and then in the next form, so in the evolution, stuff that can carry over. I believe it's been said that Pokemon shouldn't feel like they just get bigger. So this time I really played with that idea. What can I involve in this design that in itself can evolve? So I made sure that there were some aspects that I could play with. I really loved the idea of using a rope to have them holding hands. It almost feels like both hands are one rope that goes all the way across, or the hands are a part of these knots at the top, and these twisted, tangled up, knotted hair type appendages were something that, while I was playing with them and kind of designing for this, I knew this is going to become something later. I put it in place now, knowing that for lack of a better term, knowing that these little fixtures will evolve alongside the Pokemon. They won't just be getting bigger, they'll be evolving. It feels redundant to say, and it feels backwards to think about it that way. Like, isn't that what you've been doing this whole time, Stern? Yes and no. I just feel like with each of these drawing challenges, like the astrology Pokemon stuff and the Elden Ring Pokemon series that I'm doing, there's something to be learned at each intersection. And honestly, talking it through in these videos is one of the best things that I've done for myself in this way. It's stuff that I might think to myself, okay, I'm gonna do this because it just feels right. But then forcing myself to sit down and give commentary on my reasons for these, I feel like that allows me to verbally acknowledge, like, oh yeah, that was a decision that I made, and let me expand on it a little bit. And that's kind of what I'm doing in these videos. So for the moment, we have these two here. I really love them. I love they're just so cute, and they hit a lot of the notes that I feel like I hit very often with these early designs, but nonetheless, I love them. Tandy, the twin Pokemon. Tandy can be spotted prancing about along the Kostawis Plains. They love to gossip with one another and will giggle back and forth before venturing back to their merry way. They always have something to talk about, as it is said that to allow them to look into your eyes is allowing them into your very mind. So, taking all of what I learned in the first form into account, I then had to do something with that. I started designing, and this was actually the design that I had in mind. So the final form, quote unquote, if you've been watching the astrology series, you know this is absolutely not the final form, but if you haven't been, surprise, pretend at least to be surprised at the end. But this was the form that I thought of when I was just kind of laying in bed. And as often happens, if you watch my Elden Ring videos, you know that I will have a great idea. It's why I pick that character or that design or that idea, that concept, and I go with it. And as I start to draw it, I start to change my mind. I start to realize that what I'm thinking of may not work the way I want it to. But I had this idea in mind of these two twisted bodies, very rubbery, very elastic type of bodies. This is where I got that inspiration from Velvet and Veneer, was they are very much based on Betty Spaghetti, toy from I think the 80s or 90s, and I wanted to incorporate that elasticity to it. Then came the question of, this Pokemon has two human-shaped bodies. How do you fit all of that in one design? I don't think we have any Pokemon, at least as far as I can think of, that are two Pokemon in one that both have their own distinct bodies. Even Diglett to Dugtrio, they're just kind of these little mounds in the ground. Barbaracle is many faces, one body. This would be the first that is two bodies kind of twisted together. And I also wanted to continue to incorporate that pop star or celebrity status. How do I make that something that works? Just a lot of ideas. And trying to figure out the execution for that became the struggle, became the hardest part. I get praised every now and then. This isn't me tooting my own horn, but I get praised every now and then with the speed at which that I'm able to crank out a design. Well, it's because it comes with a lot of forethought. I think about it a lot prior to even starting the process. But even then, I end up changing absolutely everything. The initial concept for these characters here, or this character here, was just that they were twisted. I had as much as the waist and the legs. They would share a pair of legs and have kind of twisted bodies. And beyond that, I started adding in the other ideas. The pop star, the celebrity, the simple life, the Velvet and Veneer, the characters from Coraline. All of those ideas came together, and boy, how do I fit all of that in one? And do I want to? Should I? So I began making some changes. If I'm gonna make these feel like pop stars, and they should feel like pop stars, I changed those pointed eyelashes from the previous form of Tandy into sunglasses, but I still wanted to keep that eye shape. So I gave them sunglasses and maintained that upper eyelid style to make them seem almost half lit, half open eyes, almost as if they're looking down upon you for some reason, as if they know that they're better than you. I wanted to carry over and continue that color scheme that I was going with before, that cotton candy style that really makes them feel like 90s pop stars. And I wanted to transform that rope motif into something more rubbery, into something that had a little bit more give to it. So that's kind of where we got with the design process, and then going in and doing the colors was its own, hurdle to hurdle. And how do I want to make this feel less hyper simple? So I came up with these gloves and these boots and utilizing a new color into the mix, not just pink and purple, but bringing in these dark, not just pink and blue, I should say, but bringing in these dark purples and these mauves and utilizing those to break up the shapes a little bit. And I began to be very happy with the design. And I'm hoping that it really fulfills what Gemini wants. So then the question is, what does a Gemini want? Well, continuing to look back on the inspiration for this design, I looked at the idea of Gemini, and they are very at odds with themselves on a lot of things. They are curious and intelligent, but also impulsive. They have great communication skills and are highly adaptable, funny, outgoing, looking on the bright side, social. All of these things that really fed into this pop star and diva type of design. I also thought of the meme a couple years back where it was funny to call someone a Gemini, and almost the idea that they were divas or willing to spill the tea and I wanted to incorporate all of that as well on top of the elements that I was already bringing in. But I really like the direction that we went, and I think that the intertwined look really works.
Tendiva, the twin Pokémon. Tendiva use their elongated bodies to intertwine and confuse their opponents. They are apt at reading the minds of their opponents to uncover flaws and secrets. While this power could be used to great effect, they are much more concerned with the spotlight and will fight amongst themselves for it. Those who have befriended this Pokémon report that there is no better confidant, as they are perceptive and empathetic to the trainer's needs. Research addendum. The concert was packed tonight, and the crowd was going wild for Tendiva's one Pokémon show. Or is it a two Pokémon show? Regardless, the concert was about to close as Tendiva belted out the notes of their final song. But as the lights began to dim, and the people were making their way towards the doors, probably in a hurry to beat traffic, the show somehow continued. The skylight was open, and the stars illuminated the stadium, and Tendiva began to change. Gone were the held high notes and songs in unison. No, they were replaced by a rock opera style symphony as Tendiva's individual halves rocked on to their own beats. The crowd went wild.
If you're familiar with our astrological series, then you'll know that there's always a third form. This form of Tendiva, I wanted to make something special, something a little bit different, something that feels like it changes up what we previously knew about the Pokemon. So when the stars align in the proper order and it's a certain time of year, Tendiva will take on a new appearance. One that isn't just them singing together, but one that allows for them to sing similarly, but separate. It allows for a mashup. Now, I'm a person who loves a good music mashup. I will seek them out on my Spotify playlist looking for songs that are mashed together, specifically if they're very different styles of song. And I wanted to incorporate that. So while Tendiva has a lot of the same application as the other form, this one also incorporates some different ideas, different shapes, and becomes overall bigger. I thought about the idea of a performer and how the grand finale is often so vastly different than what's come before it. How it feels bigger, it feels stronger, it feels more put together. Maybe it brings in aspects of the previous songs, tying them into one unique, well, a knot. So while previous forms kept the shapes of the two intertwined Pokemon separate, I wanted this one to feel like they were together, that this is the true form of union between this Pokemon. So the arms, rather than being 4 separate arms, are now each 2 giant arms made from the knotting and intertwining of the other parts. The legs are the same. Rather than being awkwardly balanced between the 2 bodies on 2 legs, they are overly sturdy on 4, and the body has morphed together into this hulking, larger-than-life type figure. I thought about the idea of a one-man band and how they're often bulky and large, carrying drums and guitars and kazoos and harmonicas and all these instruments all together, and I wanted to bring that all into one place, and I really like it. I also wanted to give them 2 different hairstyles to show that this Pokemon now, as empathetic as it is, as understanding as Gemini can be, it's taking care of itself. It's putting itself back together and no longer focusing solely on putting others back together. While those are both wonderful things, I wanted a Pokemon that encapsulated them, showed that there is this beauty in taking care of oneself as well. That's a lesson that I myself am having to learn over and over again. Maybe it's because I'm a slow learner, maybe it's because it's something that we all need to hear every once in a while. So while this is a mixed up Pokemon, a mashup of multiple ideas, it all comes together and proves that sometimes taking care of yourself and putting yourself back together should come before putting others back together. I'm gonna go ahead and step off my soapbox here and say thank you for watching. If you aren't aware, we recently passed 1,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. It may not be a lot, but it's something big to me, and it means a ton. We also have the Patreon where you can get exclusive stuff. I just put a poll on there for what kinds of videos you want to see more of, and it looks like trainers and lore are really taking a lead on that, so keep an eye out. We also have the Instagram, the Twitter, all sorts of social media, so be aware of what's going on around you and where you can find more stuff of mine. And with that, it sounds like you know where to find me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!